Respecting your family and dying with a will or a trust in place can save your family years, if not decades, of stress and concerns and problems, and save untold thousands, tens of thousands, even millions of dollars in assets. On our special Behind the Gavel with Jason episode today, we're going to be talking about dying without a will. Aretha Franklin died just last week, and it came out yesterday or the day before that she died without a will. And this could be a non-issue for her and her family. On the other hand, it could be a huge issue for her family. There have been many people who have died without a will over the years, many famous people. Prince 2 years ago, although he was much younger, still probably should have had a will. Bob Marley died famously without a will, and his estate took over 30 years to settle. The same is true for Jimi Hendrix. And these were huge, complicated issues because everything around the estate, the value of the estate itself was important, but the value of the rights, of the music, of licensing, and everything else. Now, most people watching this are not going to have licensing issues or credits to be concerned about. But if you have an estate that has any kind of value, any kind of significant value at all, you really need to contemplate, consider, and follow through on having a will completed for you and your family. If you die without one in place, it can cause your family tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. It can cause years of anxiety and stress. And nobody wants to put that burden upon their family. Just a couple of interesting things I found out. And I've known this, but just kind of do a quick bit of research on it. If you die without a will, you're dying intestate. And so that's not something anybody wants. In the case of Aretha Franklin in particular, she was very private about her money. She famously asked to be paid in cash and put it in her purse and kept the purse on stage during her performances because she was so concerned about the cash at hand and the money. Now everybody's going to know exactly what her estate is worth. Everybody's going to know where every penny is, where every dollar is, who's getting what, and so on and so forth. If you have a will, you can maintain that privacy. People will only be able to speculate what your value is, whether it's high or low. It doesn't matter. It's the privacy issue. Do you want your neighbors to know? Do you want your cousins to know? Extended family to know what you're worth? Because it's all public once it goes. Because what happens if you die intestate, the state gets involved. And if you have a large estate covering multiple states, you could have documentation in several states. I'm Mercedes. Thanks for watching. We're talking about dying without a will or a trust today in a special Behind the Gavel with Jason episode. If you have questions or comments, post them here, share them with your friends. This is a truly important topic. We talk about all kinds of things here, but this is a really important topic to consider. But some of the most important parts of actually doing the work and having a will or a trust executed for you while you're mentally sound to do so. Privacy. Again, like we just said, if you die intestate, everything becomes public. All of your financial records, all of your holdings, that becomes public record because it's determined and settled by a court of law. And everything in a court of law is public knowledge. There's nothing hidden there. You have control. Let's say there's somebody who by law should receive an inheritance, but for whatever reason, you don't want them to. They might be wildly successful on their own and really don't need money from mom and dad's estate. Or they could have done things, made life decisions that you don't agree with, and you decided to not put them in the will. You have that control. If there are people outside of your family that you want to recognize and say, because of this person, we were able to do X, Y, or Z, or they helped our children, you can put that into the will. You have the control to say, I want my neighbor to get a portion of my estate because they were so important for my life and so important to my children, or whatever the case may be. You can make gifts. If you have an estate of any value, if your children have done a reasonably good job of keeping themselves, taking care of themselves, you can make gifts to organizations, associations, and foundations, educational organizations that meant a lot to you or mean a lot to you. And it's such a great way to recognize them with your life. Hey, thanks for watching in today, Dennis. We're talking about dying without a will or a trust. Aretha Franklin just last week died, but it was released the last 2 days. that she died without a will, and so it's going to go public. Has to be settled by the court. There are four sons. There's a niece, I believe, has been assigned the executrix, but everything still has to go through the public domain. Everything still has to go through court and be decided by court. Hi, Janet. Thanks for watching. We're talking about dying without a will or trust in Mercedes. I chat happens to my home if my husband and I don't have a will and we travel. I'm 30. What happens to my home if my husband and I don't have a will and we travel? I'm 30. Exactly. That is a huge concern, Mercedes. In your specific instance, you have an of-age child and an underage child. 18, of course, is the legal age for most anything. Something else. Right. So if either one of you die and the other one doesn't, everything, I believe in every state, and of course, check with your professionals, your local professionals. If you die and your husband is alive or your husband dies and you're alive, everything transfers to the successor or to the living heir, the living spouse. If you were to both die when you're traveling or just going to work, it doesn't matter where. Everybody says, well, what if I die traveling? Most people don't die traveling. They die when they're at home. But it doesn't matter when and where. The fact of the matter is, if you and your husband were to die tomorrow, Mercedes, and I don't mean to talk about bringing up that so bluntly, your children would have to hire attorneys. They would have to, find all of the paperwork, documentation, assets that you and your husband have acquired over the years. And then the courts would decide who gets what, when, and where. Now, I know my wife and I, we've talked about this, and we are not. Are you planning, or is that just a hypothetical? Sorry. My wife and I, Stacey and I, have talked for years about getting this work done, and we haven't, and we need to, because we have two children who are 16 and 12 that we both love dearly, and we need to get this work taken care of because we have two businesses, we have a house, and we have cash assets, we have art assets. My wife has a little bit of jewelry, it's not a big thing, but we have things that need to be distributed. And if her and I were both to die, and Mercedes, this might be the case in your situation, your parents or your husbands with the house going to, yeah, there would definitely be issues arisen around that fact. Would it go to your oldest child, your youngest child? Would it go to somebody else completely? Who decides where it goes and when and where? Whereas if you take the time and the effort and spend a few $1,000s today, is about the number I hear regularly, between $1,000 and $3,000 for most estates seems to be the number that we've heard talking to persons for us and for others. That for that kind of a small amount of money, realistically speaking, when you're talking about a house or your estate and collections and things like that, to get that peace of mind to say, when you pass, it goes into a trust for both of the children. While your 12-year-old is still living, you set up plans for that. We're still expected to be taken care of by the family unit. You can set those things up in a trust and say, until our youngest turns 18 or 21 or 25, you want to make sure they get all the way through college, that these things will be in place to protect him or her. Those are the things that a trust and a will is really about. And especially when you have a large age range between 30 and 12, that's 18 years. I mean, that's a large break. Your 30-year-old doesn't want to have the responsibility of a 12-year-old if something were to happen. And nor would the 12-year-old want the 30-year-old to be the sole, and they may or may not. I'm just talking in generality. Obviously, I don't know your family, Mercedes, so I'm just speaking in general terms and in wide-ranging ideas. But yeah, taking the time, investing the time, and investing a little bit of money today will ensure that your family is taken care of the way you want them taken care of. And that is so important. At least it is to me and Stacey. And like I said, this is a conversation that we need to have and need to get taken care of here shortly. Taking care of the family around you and making sure that they're comfortable and they don't have the concern of what to do now. When you really consider it, Aretha Franklin has 40, they're adult men, but they've just lost their mother. And now they have to go through the public spectacle of going through an estate situation in the courts. And because their mother was Aretha Franklin, they're going to have scrutiny put on them that most people could never dream of. and they're going to have outside influences on them that most of us would never want to experience. And odds are one of the four brothers is going to have an issue with something somewhere, and it's going to become an extended issue. Whereas by taking the time to do things for her family, none of this would become an issue. There would not be anything in the news cycle today or tomorrow or next week or 2 years from now. Prince's estate is still being worked on. Like I said, Jimi Hendrix and Bob Marley's estates took over 30 years to get them finally settled. And could you imagine your children having to work through that for that amount of time? I can't. I don't want to. And so it's such an important conversation to have with your husband, your wife, your partners, and get those things taken care of. Even if you don't have children, it makes your process for whomever is entrusted with your estate so much easier. Do you want to support the symphony? Do you want to support the dog shelter? Do you want to support your college? Do you want to support whatever? You can make sure that that happens by spending some time and effort and getting it taken care of today. So that's it. Like I said, this is a special Behind the Gavel with Jason here on a Thursday afternoon. We usually do these Friday morning, and we are doing it tomorrow, but it's a little bit more upbeat conversation about not caring what your items sell for, which is completely different than this. But if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please post them here. Send us a direct message. Give us a call at 816-283-3333, or drop us an email at info@kcauctioncompany.com. Otherwise, have a great afternoon. It's cool, rainy, and the fall season feels like it's coming, although I'm sure we're going to have summer here come up pretty soon. And so thank you all for watching. Thanks for all the reactions, the questions, the interactions with the page. I appreciate it. Share this with friends and family who you think could benefit from this information. And again, if you have any questions, contact us in any one of the ways we just mentioned. Have a great afternoon, and we will talk to you on Friday.